Good morning, everyone. Microphone check, screen check. Yeah, looks like everything's working correctly. Good. Welcome. Welcome back. Hopefully everyone's been able to rest up and get ready for the day ahead and all that fun stuff. Let's see here. Yeah, looks like everything's working correctly. Got a little bit of storms going on again, so if I just suddenly disappear, you know what's going on. It's I don't know, man. These storms are just coming in and out, and it's been a really warm October. It's kind of weird, which would explain probably a lot of the storms. But anyway, hopefully you all had a chance to rest up, get ready for the day ahead, and all that fun stuff. As per the usual, make sure to read through the morning prep PDF on the right side of the screen there. Very important to go through and understand everything that is inside there. And then just a quick note for you all as well before we jump on in today on the YouTube side of things. The stream does have between like a 5 and 30 second delay, which will definitely impact the timeliness of what I may be talking about at any given moment. Alright. Almost forgot about that. That'd be a bummer. Hey Vicky, how's it going? Good morning. I just want to take a second, like we do every day, to thank all of our new members, subscribers, Academy students, VIPs, and everyone in between. Welcome to the SSFTG fam. I'm super excited to have you all on board one way or another. Now, if you aren't a part of the SSFTG family yet, there are a ton of different ways to join up. The easiest way is to join as a YouTube member with the join button below the stream. It gets you in the chat room, the YouTube community boards, the stock and crypto chart posts that we've got going on, and a bit more behind the scenes and what's going on. Of course, if you want to understand what it is that we do everything really, check out the Day Trading Academy along with everything else that we have waiting for you over at SSFTG.com. So if you're here for the first time or the 1000th, good morning, welcome. I hope you're all ready to rock and roll alongside with me today analyzing these crazy markets of ours. Let's take a look at some charts, take a look at some news. We actually have some news today. That's kind of nice compared to yesterday. But first, don't forget to grab your morning DP levels. Those are posted for you on the major 7 markets. Nasdaq, S&P, Gold, Crude, Euro, Bitcoin, and Ethereum. It's a race every time, and we still got them running shoes on. As far as the news for today, the only big news that we have for today is 10 o'clock. That's the JOLTS job openings for August. The forecast is 10.925 million. But if you are an agricultural trader, if you trade the soybeans markets or any of those other corn and wheat, any of those, today is a huge day for you. WASDE report day. That is a huge one at noon. 12 o'clock for agricultural traders specifically. Today is a massively important day. Some of the largest volatility that you will see on, well, honestly, across the board. I mean, there's some pretty huge moves on the ags during that report. But at 12 o'clock, that's taking place. So if you are trading on the agricultural side of things, just be careful. 12 o'clock could be, well, it will be volatile. It always is. All right, get that out of the way. Take a look at the chart, see what's going on so far this morning. One of the big things that we were talking about earlier in the Discord chat room and this area as a whole, this really looks like sellers are trying to take over. We have 3, with one of them being almost a double top, lower highs along the way, and the sellers are really pressuring back against them. So with this amount of pressure back to the downside and that failure right there, that's a tough one, right? A lot of traders will have tried to get in to that move, going for the swing up. I mean, look how this worked. Higher low, everything that the bulls needed, including the volume to show that they were actually there. And they couldn't make a new high. So when it fails back down and now gives them a chance to get out of break even, we were talking about our concerns yesterday of that being the case, and sure enough, that ended up being the case. So now that it's rolling back up, honestly, this is nothing more than really just kind of the last ditch from the bulls, assumably, at least at this point in time. The one thing that the bulls do have is a rising level of support that's kind of creating a little bit of a barrier, but at the very least, sellers are going to be looking for a retest of settlement, if not a little bit further down, and this could be the potential breakdown point that we see moves all the way down to like the -1 DP and potentially further. Not necessarily sure when it's going to want to take off. This little twin reversal that's picking up off of the off the 60 minutes, a really good start. But we'll see how they want to follow through. You know, the overall momentum is still attempting to get going to the downside, and they're trying to drive lower. I love the short side. The swing short makes a lot of sense. It's just a matter to see whether or not they want to follow it up. Looking on the S&P side of things, the S&P is in a very similar situation. We had this kind of back and forth, choppy, sloppy, you know, not sure if we're going to go up, not sure if we're going to go down wedge scenario. They tried breaking higher, and well, they couldn't get it going. We've got some problems. So if we're looking at it from the top all the way down to the bottom, and then go back from the bottom all the way up to the top, and then the top all the way down to the first bottom, and then we'll go the top down to the next bottom where it is. So if we're looking at breaking down this overall market structure, once this final POC loads up, what we're seeing here is effectively what looks like a lot of dip buyers that were trying to buy into the dip, or sellers taking profit. Regardless, doesn't matter. A buy order is a buy order. How's it going, laddie? Steven, everybody else so far? Good morning, good morning. This is assumably buyers, right? I have to assume they're buyers trying to buy it for a rotation back up. And I'm sure there are sellers taking profit in there too, of course. But when they fail to rotate higher, drop back down, it's fairly obvious that, well, they weren't really done with the mission, and that ended up being a middle-weighted POC. We talk about that a lot. You measure from the top to the middle, and that usually projects to the bottom, and that ends up being about perfect. But after we had that, we went a bit sideways, got the wedge, they tried breaking above the POC, and, well, they failed. And now look where we find ourselves. Right? Look where we find ourselves. What an interesting spot. So, I mean, the market's still going up very aggressively. Right? We have to play it from the fact that it is still just screaming along. But, right, there's a lot of reason to believe that there's some potential extra, gumption to the downside here that could really be kicking off. It's just a matter of how far they want to get this thing going. So, this is a big spot. It's a really big spot. We just don't know if it's actually going to be good enough. Hang on, my charts are frozen. What the heck? There we go. That's not a good start. let's freeze up the charts. Perfect. All right, cool. Please don't freeze anymore. I don't want that today. That's bad juju. No thanks. Going over to the gold market, this thing is still incredibly sharp and pointy, and honestly, this thing scares the crap out of me. I said this yesterday too. Fade the high, fade the low, and stay the heck out of the middle. Really, we get up to the highs, sellers push it right back down again. We get down to the lows, buyers slap it right back up again. Eventually, this spring will break, or let loose, or whatever you want to call it. Bounce. But the question is, who's going to lose? Right? Who's going to win? Which way is it going to go? This has been going sideways for so long that anything that was happening before this becomes a little bit less relevant. I mean, it's still part of the perpetual downtrend. We haven't broken any major swings up yet. But that said, this isn't exactly looking like great price action here. I still have to remain on the sell side with a slight edge, but that's about it. We'll see. Over on crude oil, getting absolutely obliterated to the downside now, slamming lower back through the 80s and now down to 79.50. We've made it all the way up into the 82s before finding that pullback. Now that the market has achieved a rally above the 80s, I wasn't even necessarily expecting to go much further than that, but we had that blow off all the way up to 82. We're seeing some profit taking. I mean, this makes sense. If we're looking at this from a corrective phase, we could be looking for an ABCD correction back down. That would project prices down to 79s, 78.80, down there. If we go back on the last POC, from the bottom to the top, this is also lining up almost perfectly with a retest from the shorts, assumably the shorts, right? All this volume building up at the highs after a massive failure lower. I have to assume that if they're longs, right, then they're taking profit at the highs. And if they're shorts, which I have to assume they're shorts because look at the volume, it's increasing the whole way up. Every single one of these nodes is bigger than the last. Like, you don't get that structurally obvious of building very frequently. And we can tell that they gave up building once it broke above the highs. That was the invalidation point. Now, there will be some traders that just stopped out, right? I mean, for sure. But we're talking JP, Goldman, and a heck of a lot of zeros in the bank account. They don't have to stop out, right? And in fact, most of the time they're not. They're just building in to exit. That's how this works. So selling into this area to the upside, where do we see more residual building? Built up a little bit more into the 8130s or so. Now we're seeing a continuation back down to where? Back down to their break-evens. What do you think they're going to do? Now, here's the big caveat. If this does not make it through and bounces because they're taking their break-evens, this could go all the way back up to 90. Like, that's a huge bounce if that takes place. 90 is a little bit of an over-projection, but really far up there. Whereas, if they lose their ground, and I mean, more than just like a little boop, it's got to really lose its ground under this. That could potentially create a reversal point for a big dive lower to challenge the low 75s, maybe even into the upper 74s. It's a big balance point. Right now, and from a common sense standpoint, based on what we're seeing here, I think a lot of shorts that got stuck are getting out. Look at the bounce that we're seeing. It makes sense. It lines up. But it is a turning point if it breaks through it. Over on the euro, big dive to the downside. How's it going, Ace? Good morning, good morning. We've got the continuation to the downside, and the sellers just keep driving this thing. But here's the most recent, what's the word I'm looking for? Goings on? There's a better word for it, but whatever. We haven't had a new low. It's a higher low. Now, there's it just, right? I mean, this could easily turn around and break the low, no problem. But right now, at least, the bulls are in their low probability swing long scenario. They have every reason to believe that they can risk very little here, right? And again, we're talking like risking very little for a potential reward of, even to the nearest objective, is easily, I mean, what, like 3.5, almost 4 to 1? The inside target even is a 2 to 1. So, I mean, bulls know that the probability is trash here, but the reward pays for that, so it's fine. They'll take that deal every time. Now, the trend is still down. The market's still going lower, but it's obviously running out of steam. It's got to go sideways, transitional for a little bit. Maybe migrate up with a two-legged corrective phase back up into the 1.626s. Kind of makes sense. All right. Over on crypto. Whew, man. We've got Bitcoin. I mean, it's almost there. It's so close. But it just can't quite reach out and grab that 60,000. It's running into the 58s, 59s. I mean, man, it's right there, but you can tell there's a lot of pushback. The first time we rallied up, we went sideways, but for the most part, not really much more than sideways, not even really a pullback, and then continued up. Same thing. Not really even sideways. It kept going higher low. This is a rolling correction. So I know it doesn't look like it's doing much, but it's not pulling back. The last time we saw this rewind, like a year ago, when you were talking on the Nasdaq, was just not pulling back. There's no pullbacks. There's never been any pullbacks. It's just not pulling back. This is what Bitcoin's doing. Or Ethereum. Remember like maybe 6-7 months ago where it was higher low, higher low, higher low, coming out of the 600s, 700s? It might have been longer than 6 or 7 months. It was higher low, higher low, the whole way up. Now Bitcoin's doing it. Remember what happened when Ethereum did it? It went from 600 to 3,000. So what does that mean for Bitcoin? You know, like, holy crap. Wait a minute now. There's some serious potential. I know it's way up in the stratosphere, but I mean, to be fair, the dip did kind of happen already. Ethereum not looking as strong. I think a lot of traders are kind of focusing on Bitcoin. We've got a lot more interest over on Bitcoin. There's more going on over there. And Ethereum already kind of had its rally. You know, it went from 600 to 3,000. It can take a little bit of a pause, take a little bit of a break, go sideways for a bit more, which it's been doing. We haven't broken up to the all-time highs through 4,000s yet. And the highest it's been able to go since then is about 3650, pretty close. But you can see there's a lot of pushback going on here, and on Ethereum, we might need a little bit of a deeper pullback. Structurally speaking, we don't have any nice pullback zones until down in the 3200s. And if that doesn't hold, then we don't have anything until maybe 3000 or 2750. So Ethereum is a little less nice looking. Bitcoin's looking really strong. We'll see. We shall see. See what's going on so far this morning. Again, if we're looking at the larger perspective on the Nasdaq, like we've been talking about, this is a short bias area. We just haven't seen a reason to actually jump into the short yet. Although it's trying. You know, this is definitely a hot spot. We're bouncing off of that, for whatever it's worth, the previous 5-minute POC from Friday. It did respond to it too, crazy enough. So now the thing that we really have to figure out is this a break-even run and the market transitions lower? This is a swing short area. 100% out of the gates, sellers will be looking for swing shorts. This is the spot. The probability's garbage, like we've been talking about, but this is an option short, right? I mean, man, it's not open yet. It's still got like 14 minutes. That's a bit awkward. They've got a shot, you know. We'll have to wait and see where they go. I did do an update on NinjaTrader, so let me know if anything looks out of place. I was hoping that would fix the moving averages, which it looks like it did. I was having that bug where the moving averages didn't want to load up properly, but now it appears as though they're still loading up properly. So I mean, the zoom's out of whack, but so let me know if anything looks weird or out of place, but I don't think the update changed anything in the layout. There we go. Oh, is the font size smaller again? Okay, so I'm gonna have to make a note of a couple things. Just let me know the things that you notice, and I'll update them. Font size. Whoops. Too small. There we go. Interestingly enough, there is also out of the gates the swing long. We've got like swing traders butting heads this morning. The longs and the shorts are fighting each other. Usually when you see both of them lining up in the same spot, you know you're in a pretty big spot. That could get fairly interesting. Long in the ES from the POC and just out with 36 ticks. Happy cam. Nice work, Steven. Great job. Zooming into the faster time frame to see what's going on from here. Got 10 minutes until the open. We started off the day with basically a bull rally that just hasn't really stopped. Okay. Could also go a bit tighter. Which is kind of expanded out into a spike in channel. Kind of blew off the highs, though. So, there's a lot of things that are saying this might need to pull back a bit further. I don't know. Holy cow. that move down was nuts. Okay. Well, we'll have to see what they want to do, but got the open right excuse me, right around the corner here in about 8.5 minutes or so. On the Nasdaq so far, we have that top-weighted POC that sellers were trying to build in, but when it came back, it allowed them out of break even, bounce back up. From there, it hasn't really done much else. Let's go up to the new high. POC hasn't changed a whole lot. At least with the Nasdaq, they started with that small little bear cycle down first. What a mess. And here it sits. I love it, Steven. Yeah, yeah. Oh man, look at. I'm half tempted to start getting rid of gold until it shapes up. Its attitude lately is just it's starting to get to the breaking point, Maury. I can't handle it anymore. Got the euro. I don't think the euro's even moved. I mean, look at this. Nothing. Dead standstill. Oh, there it goes. We caught it napping. It's like, well, wait, nope. Hang on. Don't tell the boss. Got the Nasdaq just kind of going sideways. That bear bar off the top is causing some concern. I mean, it's a lower high, but it's also a higher low. We've got the similar situation on the S&P, but the S&P was a doji. I mean, they're trying to get something going, but we haven't even seen a new low. Like, they're just not accomplishing anything yet. We've got to give them a little more time. Crude oil's looking like a nice possibility of a reversal off the lows. Again, it's a pretty pointy, spiky, nasty market right now, but Okay, that last rotation was an L4. That's... Okay, so I'm just playing devil's advocate, right? For the longs. The sellers got absolutely shredded. Non-existent, ran over, destroyed. My concern is that, well, if they can't get under that, that's going to be a really big problem for the sellers. So we've got a bit of a balance point here, right on top of settlement too, of course. What worse spot? Everything in the same zone. Oh man, that's I don't know. Crude oil still continuing further up. Really strong rally to the upside. They're trying. Hang on one second. Okay. Crude oil's got some legs. Wow. Definitely some candle gapping on the rally up on crude oil as well. Over the last, I mean, technically that was an inside bar, but the last confirmed candle gap would have been from there to there. And even that has upward objectives of 81.15. There's still plenty of room. The bulls on crude oil still have a lot of space to keep that thing going. Bit of a bummer for me being way up in the stratosphere, but I suppose if it does decide to pull back, 80.35 is a nice area. $9.28 right around the corner, the next big block of volatility to come in. $9.28 is the final drop period for adjustments on at the open orders. So there's usually a big little pulse in volatility at $9.28 if there's something going on. Doesn't look like that's the case today. Pretty calm and quiet. If we're looking at the Nasdaq cycle higher, and this goes for the S&P as well, but the Nasdaq made this beautiful trap on the lows and rotated up off of that with an L2. Then an inside L1, rotated into another L1, broke out higher. Couldn't even get the L1. Missed the L1 there, missed it on that pullback, finally pulled back, and they missed it there too. Okay. Yeah, I thought they got it there, but never mind. They missed the L1 there along the way. So really, this is kind of the first time that the L1 buyers showed up to the party, and they couldn't even make it up to the highs. I don't know. I mean, I'm getting some serious concerns, some bad vibes coming from the long on the indexes. We'll see. The bulls are still in control, so it doesn't matter what I feel like. But I don't know. There's some red flags waving out there. Stock exchange open right around the corner here in about 30 seconds or so. Crude oil waiting for a little bit of a pullback down into the lower 80s if it's able to. As far as the open volatility goes, it's usually the highest on the Nasdaq. A nice little zone of interest, honestly. Look how heavy to the sell side this looks right now. If the bulls are going to take over, I mean, they'd probably take over closer to like the 746s or even the 44s. Maybe a little bit of a flush down into that low. Just a bit of volatility. God, man, this thing's jumping like 5 points at a time. The bulls did pick it up on that little bit of a pulse lower, although for me, it didn't go down far enough. I wanted to go down below that previous nice bull bar up. Now the concern, if they go back down again, would be the wick on the top of this potential bear bar that will cause some issues. Of course, it's just a brand new 5-minute candle. Lots of time. Nice little dip for the bulls to try to pick up a pulse. Looking for a continuation, pop back up towards the, likely the 55s to upper 50s into the 60s if they can get it going. Didn't get that flush. Secondary dip back down. Nice. All right. So this is the area where the bulls, looking for the continuation of the trend, are going to be trying to take over. There are going to be a lot of stops under here, and the bulls who are looking to try to get in and absorb those stops know that. So if they're going to bounce it in this zone or in this area, this is the area where we should see some responsiveness. There's still 3 minutes left on the candle, though. Extra pulse to the downside. We're digging down into that lower area. Remember, down towards the 700s. I know it's hard to see zoomed in this close, but if you zoom out a little bit further, this is that area of interest. Now, from this point, if they can't hold inside of here for that bullish return back up, then realistically, there's a chance that we have a larger drop lower towards the last volume point of interest in the 620s. So you've got to see the rotation back up sooner than later, and I'm going to start having to mitigate a little bit along the way. Luckily, though, the S&P is still open and still very ready to to offer up some options. I'll utilize this little pulse higher to liquidate some of the loss initially, but also to bring my average lower to create a more favorable situation. Now we should be able to look for the first objectives into like the 40s, with follow-throughs being at around a 3-to-1 at around 70. Nice continuation up into the first objective. Secondary pulse. They've got to follow through. This is the earlier point where the long started building in the first place. If they can get through this, then we should be able to clear up to the 68s. There we go. Keep going. Keep going. Keep pushing. Go, go, go. Push through it. Ugh, all right. I'm going to jump ship there. Beautiful pulse back to the upside. I had to eat a little bit of the loss on the way down, but the rally back up easily took over for that. You know, we didn't quite make it up to the area that I wanted it to go to, but close enough. I mean, I was looking for 68 to 70, and it went up to 63. Oh, okay. Now it goes up and finishes the job to 70. All right, fair enough. You rotten bugger. S&P didn't even pull back far enough for that same setup to happen. The Nasdaq had that really, really nice trap dip. I missed a lot of fills in there because of that herky-jerky volatility. The trade could have been a lot different. But, I mean, realistically, the S&P couldn't even get underneath the previous low. Like, I mean, like I said, buyers are going to be looking to buy the dip on the open to try to get it going. It's just, I don't know if they're going to hang out for the highs. We'll see. Yeah, that's a monster of a green candle. On the 1 minute too? Yeah. That thing reversed off the lows like nobody's business. We'll see what they want to do with it, though. They couldn't break the top. They broke an inside swing. Bulls trying to get more continuation to the upside and keep this thing going. If we're looking at the first volume on the 5, that's going to be at 57.50 on the Nasdaq, and holy crap, 55.25 on the S&P, like right at the bottom. Oh man, the S&P wasn't shy about buying into the dip, huh? At least the Nasdaq kind of herky-jerked people around a little bit, even made people eat some losses initially, but the S&P is just, nah, it's not going to go to a new low. Beautiful continuation phase back to the upside. Bulls are trying to get this to go back above the POC, 57.50. First 5-minute POC is at 57.50. It hasn't changed. S&P as well at 55.25. Crude oil for swings to the upside have potentials around the 80.35s for the continuation back up. Yeah, see, we're not seeing the bulls sticking around to the highs. They're catching the lift up, and maybe this little inside pullback, if they bounce soon here, could just be buyers reloading where they exited to kind of re-up into the position. But why couldn't they break the high? Like, what happened? What happened? You know, it's just... Could you please explain the Nasdaq entry? Yeah, so I've got to break this down into a couple different things because obviously there were a few. But the first context was the bullish continuation, higher low, back to the upside. You can kind of see what's going on. They held the inside, broke down, and you can see where the majority of the entries were, looking for that low to hold. Now, obviously, like we were talking about, I wasn't necessarily planning on that to hold for very long, which is why there were some little, potential bounces inside of there, but why we opened the door down here, because that's the next zone of interest where all those stops are going to be. Remember, I said there's going to be a lot of stops here, but if bulls are going to gobble those stops up, this is the spot. That's where. Now, on the Nasdaq, the S&P didn't have this, but on the Nasdaq, they actually went all the way down and took out the lows. And that's where all of the rest of the stops are. And the bulls ate those alive. I tried to be a bull along with them a little bit, but remember, first in, first out in the way that this operates. I did not get that higher low continuation that I wanted. It pushed through that. I did not get the trap low that I wanted. It pushed through that. I've got to start exiting a little bit. Doesn't mean that the context of the trade is gone. I just have to modify my approach. So from the original entry point to the exit, this was the first loss on the trade. Getting in and then trying to drive my average down. The second one being here to there. Then, of course, you look at it on the other side. Entry, 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 up to the ultimate high there. So between all of them, the math is going to probably work out to be about a 1-to-1. Right. But effectively, I was looking for a higher low trend continuation. It didn't work. I was looking for a trap low continuation. That didn't work. Well, in hindsight, it did, but it didn't work the way that I was anticipating it doing it. And it went down deeper for a larger trap low, which did end up being the continuation phase. But I had to eat some losses along the way because it had invalidated 2 reasons for my long on the way down. I can't hold the full bag anymore, you know? Well, I mean, I guess you can, but... risk and all that fun stuff. Yeah, definitely. And again, if we look at the overall math from today, just today, yeah, see, it's exactly like I was talking about. So between it, just for today, 7 trades, we already know where they came from. They're all in the Nasdaq. Between the two, the average winning trade, 98. The average losing trade, 88. Average win-loss, 1.11. Now we can see the average, or the largest winner is way bigger than the largest loser, but the average still ended up being about in the middle. So I know that, based on that, my trader's math is positive. See? It might not be very positive right now, because that trade didn't work very well, or at least in the way that I wanted it to, but you get the idea. Just showing all the different fronts that you can kind of dissect a trade. The Nasdaq sellers pushing back underneath the POC at 48.75. This is also a re-entry point for a lot of bulls trying to re-up in the 720s. So this is a nice dip spot. The S&P still hasn't dipped. There's been no dip on the S&P. The Nasdaq had a nice one. My concern here is that the Nasdaq longs, who got just absolutely slam dunked, couldn't get the highs. They've been proven that they couldn't get the highs now with the bear bar down. This rotation up is just them jumping ship. Look where they're jumping ship. All of where we had the exits from before, because this is where the 3-to-1 was. Right? So why would they be exiting up here when it's rallying back up? Like, oh crap, we got this giant bear bar. Oof, oh, get me out, get me out. Comes back up to my target area, exit, get out. Right? That way when your boss comes around the corner and say, hey, did you take that target at 3-to-1? Yeah, yep. Yeah, I did. See? Which is funny because, you know, about 5 minutes ago, before that, he was walking by saying, hey, you still in that long? It's above 3-to-1, but I think it can go. Yeah, huh? POC shifting down a little bit, 14,740. Maybe these are buyers still re-upping into the lows. I mean, the wicks on the bottom of these candles are nuts. They're obviously gobbling them up like they're going out of style. The big question is, are they going to keep it going? You know, like, what are they going to do with this? I don't know. We'll see. All right, there we go. Bears continuing their drive back to the downside, which, I mean, again, makes sense. The Bulls, I feel like the Bulls lost their hope. They tried getting the rally to the upside, but it didn't work. It didn't get a new high. Maybe this is just the S&P's excuse to pull back. You know, it didn't get any of those lows. It'll also be the Nasdaq's excuse to vindict more stops out. Oh, you just bought the low and put your stop underneath that last giant candle? Sorry. You know, I mean, you can hear the vindictiveness in their voice. It's coming. Oh, we'll see. The Nasdaq is a bit of a concern for me, though. I'm not in it anymore, but that kind of translates over rather to the S&P also kind of being a concern. You got your pip? Yeah, they did. They got the pip on the top, though. I wasn't expecting that. They flipped the script on me. Not for lack of trying, but they picked their pockets. On both sides, too. I mean, really. They went down, they pipped the bottom, they went up, they pipped the top, and went back down. Who knows? What a mess. One thing's for sure, we do have a decent amount of bearishes coming in. So if we're looking at the wider perspective, this is the sell side translating back to the down, right? These are the sellers looking to get back. Remember we were talking about the sellers trying to hold this area back down to settlement? Maybe they go a little bit further for the 3-to-1s, but this is the swing short zone. They're holding it. That's a real problem for bulls. And now the Nasdaq's getting crushed. The S&P following right along. We were definitely picking up on the red flags along the way. Still, I mean, still could have gotten a lot more out of that last trade, but hindsight 2020 is always a B. Can't be too aggressive with the terms. Still got to run ads. Who's following who? Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I think the sellers are in control now. To be 100%, not going to lie, I feel like the sellers took over. I feel like the longs tried to get that rotation back to the upside, and they lost hope. I lost hope a lot sooner than all of the others did, but... Oh, the ES or the Nasdaq. I gotcha. I mean, that's kind of the thing. Like, the S&P didn't really ever show that it was a trap. The Nasdaq did, or at least it tried to show that it was a trap. But I think the S&P was kind of a clue. Like, well, wait a minute, you might want to hold up. The bulls had a shot, but then they lost it. And now we're breaking down. It ends up that wasn't a trap low. The bulls never even triggered above that giant bull bar on the Nasdaq as well. I mean, everything kind of demonstrated that the bulls just lost their grip, and the fact that the S&P is kind of churning lower, I feel like the S&P is still the leader, but it's also kind of a reality check for the Nasdaq. Like, the Nasdaq is the hyperactive kid bouncing off the walls because he just shoveled a bunch of Halloween candy down his face, but the S&P is still, the parent casually walking down the sidewalk, keeping their brains intact, and the kids just screaming along. That's how I'm looking at this right now. The S&P is still the leader. It's just the Nasdaq's jumping all over the place. It's like, oh crap! I gotta catch back up to Mom, and they go screaming down the, like, Mom, let's race, and they go screaming past you, and like, oh wait a minute, hang on, I gotta back up. That's what's happening right now. To me, at least. That's kind of how I'm seeing it. Gold's finally pushing its way back up again, but who knows? Gold is just straight barbed wire. Crude oil did get a dip. It didn't even come close to where I wanted it to dip to. Nothing I can really do about that. If they complete the objective back to the upside, kind of game over. Not really going to look for another one. Already had a nice rotation on the Nasdaq. Maybe that does it. We'll see. Sellers, like I said, I still feel like sellers are trying to get this thing to really rotate down. Up into these 98s, I mean, this is the spot where sellers may try to take back over for the continuation. This is based on the larger perspective from the 15-minute as more of a continuation down, given that the sellers have very obviously attempted to take back over again. Whether or not they'll continue success on that takeover, I don't know. The unfortunate problem for Nasdaq is that it's directly on top of settlement. What an awkward spot. POC for the impulse is back up at the 730s. I mean, this could easily correct all the way back up into the 730s. The POC on the drops down to the 40s. Not to say that we can't keep going lower. Crude oil makes it up to the objective. No pullback. Well, not a big enough of one. Got about 10 minutes until 10 o'clock. Got news at 10 o'clock. So I'm going to start easing off the gas pedal a little bit early ahead of that news. But get those questions in if you have any. Give me 2 seconds. I'll be right back. All right, we're back. Sorry about that. Took a quick short scalp on the ES. Guess I'm done for the day. Yeah, nice job, though. Great work. We'll see what they want to do. I mean, we're bottom weighting the POC now on the S&P. The bulls still might have that rotation in them. They got the venom up in them. That's an old video game reference. I don't know anybody's going to get that one. This is the zone where sellers are going to try to get the short going on the Nasdaq. This is the spot. Up in the 700s here. Alright. S&P rallying back up to the POC, rejecting back down off of 57 quarter. And here it sits. All right, 5 minutes until news. Both markets closing underneath their POC. There's a lot of eyes on how this candle is going to close, and now they finally have the, well, they've got their proof. Although, not necessarily enough proof for me to want to do anything with it. It's going to mess up that measured move a little bit, but it is going to be a bit further up towards the 79.33s now, which lines up really, really nicely with that POC at 79.40. Wow. If we could get a measured move down now on crude oil, that would be nuts. Sellers attempting more continuation to the downside. We've got everything on the right side of the POC for the sellers to keep it going. It's just this pesky settlement is in the way. Bears seem like they've picked up a bit of weight here, starting to try to pressure back against these bulls, but the settlement's still definitely in the way. Just kind of hovering. 2 minutes until news at 10 o'clock. Feel free to get those last questions in. We'll transition over to the extended session as well and get that going. See if we can find a few more scalps or something going on in the later morning session. Things from the swing side have definitely slowed down a bit more. Yeah, seriously. It makes it really complicated. Just sits there for a little while, does nothing, and then 15, 20 points out of nowhere, bam. Makes it fun, right? It feels like that's going to happen soon here. It feels like the sellers have really... They've got a lot more pressure than they did before. This is a different feeling. No, I can't say I have. Anytime that I have any like crazy distractions or anything going on, I usually try to skip trading that day, or I mean, obviously something like that's going to take some time, so you can't. But you know, the thing that sucks about it is like a hammer isn't a consistent sound, so it's not like noise canceling anything is going to work. You just gotta like duct tape a pillow to your head. I don't know. Play some really loud ambient music. And, I don't know. Hope. That's a tough one. Sellers did end up taking over and driving the market back to the downside. Jolts lower than expected. Now here's the thing, like this move down kind of feels like the sellers filled their objective. A lot of sellers selling on the continuation down. If we were to look at this from a completionary standpoint, from the entry all the way up to the overall highs, their objectives would likely be hovering around like a scalper's target. Yeah, and we're hovering right around in that zone. And look at the volume creeping up when we get in there. So this kind of feels like a job has been partially completed. Not to say that it can't go lower, but for the sellers at least, a lot of sellers have achieved some pretty good targets. It doesn't have to fall. And that last bear bar, yikes. Sellers really need to hold it from here from the 705s. Low probability, high rewards. Selling inside here with stops above the highs, rewards down way at the lows. This is the spot, but probability's bad. We'll see. Either way, we are past 10 o'clock, a little after, not seeing any other questions coming in. So let's roll over to the extended session for members and all that fun stuff, and we'll go from there. For those of you who are ducking out for the morning, I hope you had a great trading morning so far. And if you're going to keep trading, just be careful. We really don't have any other news or anything going on unless you're trading the ags. If you're trading the agricultural markets, then noon today, 12 o'clock Eastern, is a big time frame. Outside of that, though, there's not really much else. So hopefully you all had a fantastic day of trading. Rest up. We will see you all back tomorrow morning. For the rest of you who are hanging out with me in the extended session, hang out for a second. I'll get the links posted. You'll listen to me babble to myself for a second on the VIP side, and we'll rock and roll. All right? Have a good one. We'll talk to y'all later. Thanks.